everybody is in recovery or should get curious about how they can be in recovery from something.
Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast, where we focus on health and wellness and overcoming all types of addictions. You're in the right place if you're a mom, dad, sibling, or caregiver who has a loved one who is or was struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of addiction. In a time where everything seems heavy, I'm here to bring you a very real, yet lighthearted take on what the heck we're all supposed to do with our lives while we care for our loved ones who are struggling. One thing holds true throughout it all. You can't juggle the chaos without smiling. At least a little bit. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. So glad you have come back to listen to another awesome episode and appreciate your support. I have a wonderful guest here today that I'm excited to bring to you. And I think just not that all my podcasts aren't relevant to today, but really a lot of the things that Michelle and I are going to talk about, I think are so relevant to today because of what's happened the last couple of years. And I think that you can many of you can relate to this. Michelle Hillier is the founder of Breath+Fire, which is a wonderful wellness program that really looks at the things that are holding us back and just ways that we can truly be who we want to be. So, Michelle, thank you for joining me today in the midst of your little bit of a vacation. And I appreciate you coming with me today. And I'm excited for us to chat.
I am too. Yeah. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to share and see what we can come up with today together. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I always start my podcasts, if it's appropriate, just with kind of telling the story of how you got to where you're at today. And, as we talked a little bit before, just that idea that life was going on for you. And as it does for many of us, and we kind of get caught into work and mom and family and life. And we kind of perhaps forget a little bit about ourselves or kind of lose ourselves, or we start doing things or having behaviors that are just kind of numbing out those feelings of stress or life or things like that. And then this wonderful pandemic that hit kind of accelerated or accentuated a lot of those things too. So I'd love for you to just talk again about that, a bit of your story coming up to where you're at today that kind of led you to kind of a bit of a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Just your story as that. And again, as I always say, share what you feel comfortable with, what you feel is most appropriate for us today. But I'd love to have you start there.
My pleasure. Yeah, I think when I think about my story, it's like, do I start when I was born? Do I start when it's a tough one to get my head around, but I'll do my best to concisely sort of share where I got to, before we got hit with COVID, the pandemic, and then where I'm at now 2 years later. So I guess I'll start with how I feel now. I finally feel like my authentic self again. And I haven't felt like this probably since I was 24 years old. And I say that number specifically because I take myself back to a moment where I was working as a dancer on a cruise ship for 1 year, traveling the Caribbean. And I had no husband and no kids and no mortgage and really no responsibilities. And I had this anything is possible feeling in my life. And I really felt like myself. I was doing the work I love to do, which was moving and sharing that with people and meeting people from around the world. My eyes were opening to a deeper sense of compassion and empathy. And I was myself. And then fast forward, the next 25 years, it got to where I am now. And I'm finally able to feel that again, but it came with a lot of adversity and really it came with, during the pandemic, having to be, as I like to say, pretty much burn my house down to find home. So I had to be cracked wide open to get access to, recovery tools and get to me to where I am. So I guess I'll start with my childhood was typical. It was fun. I had great parents. I've been product of adoption. So I didn't look like anybody, but I fit in with a ton of love. Family was around me all the time. And I was like their little gift. That was the message I was received by them all the time, that I was their gift because they couldn't have children. So I got on stage quite quickly. My mom was a performer, so she got me into dance and singing, and I was a natural, and it worked. And I excelled at that. And I really felt that I got a lot of love and attention when I was on stage. So that I'm sharing that now because it kind of does play a role in my future self and what I lived in for 25 years before coming to my realization now. I went to university and then worked as a dancer for many years. So I spent time sort of pursuing my muse, my craft, which I loved, but I was always working the hours of the rest of the world. So I didn't like the nights and evenings and weekends. That's all I was doing. So I'm like, how can I still be in movement and dance, but do something different? So I became a teacher. I was a high school teacher for a number of years in dance and drama. And that's where I realized that I don't like to follow rules. I don't like a system. And teaching probably couldn't be anything more than a system. A bell goes, you have to be somewhere the same days of the week. And that's where my entrepreneurial spirit really sort of shone. And I wanted to break loose. I am a risky person. I like to challenge rules and safely, always safely. But that's where I decided to embark on starting my own business in 2006, 2007, around there. I saw a kind of a crack in our new dance curriculum had come out in our province. I'm from Toronto, from Ontario, and there was no support to help teachers get kids moving and how to do it. So I created this company that would do that. And I had a real good run of a number of years with a team of facilitators, and I ran my own business. And it was really, there was a lot of highs and lows, but I had a lot of success, and I felt like I was really coming into my own. From there, at the sort of the peak of that piece, I got pregnant. My husband and I, my then husband, we're divorced now, had our beautiful son in 2012. And that's when everything came to a halt. And any moms that are listening to the show, I never was ready for that. No one is. I don't think we can ever be ready, but I was rocked having the baby, and really it's no longer about me. And I couldn't just be an only child, being a business owner, being just, my parents just always instilled in me, anything is possible. You do not do what you want, but you can do anything you put your mind to, and just go for it. Well, you can't really do that as a mom because this little specimen of a beautiful child is running the show. So my business sort of took a backseat. I also feel like I really lost my identity. I didn't know, I saw myself as a woman that inspires people on stages and, has this persona. And then I sort of felt like I had to be really vulnerable and become a mom. And that is like that. I guess it scared me. It scared me. So I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. I immediately shifted into creating like a mom baby dance program. So I was still trying to find that girl on stage while still trying to be a mom. So I juggled those two things it was kind of tough for me looking back. And now my son is 10. His name is James. He's like the love of my life. But I struggle with those early years and my business and my identity. I'm telling all this now. I'll give the underbelly of sort of what was going on with how I was escaping with these problems. From there, after having my son, and then sort of felt, and I'm not sure if anybody else can relate to this, which I don't think is anything we should be doing, is I wanted to lose the last bit of baby weight. So I wanted to join a really hardcore workout program with a bunch of women that pushed me hard. I'm competitive by nature. So I was pushing hard on my body, which I do not do anymore at all. It's like softer is better and gentle is better and doing what I need to do. But back then it was harder, faster, stronger. And I had 2 injuries in both my hips. So I tore both labrums in my hips.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was brutal. And what I didn't know,
we had hockey players, and one of them almost, we thought they had a torn labrum in their shoulder. So I can understand that.
So
and
I
the
tore
pain
them both.
Yeah.
And I think my hips were a bit wonky from childbirth as well. What I didn't know is I was born with undiagnosed hip dysplasia. So I don't know if it was a product of me being adopted and not being assessed properly as a baby. I should have had surgeries as a very wee infant. So here I am with 2 torn labrums. Arthritis kicks into both hips. And I call my birth mother because we have reunited. That could be a whole other podcast interview. I have an adoption reunion story. I called her and I said, does arthritis run in our family? I'm only in my 40s here. She's like, oh man, it does. My aunt and my cousin both have women in their 40s. Anyways, fast forward, I saw a surgeon, and within 1 year, I had double hip replacement. So I had 2 titanium hips. That was a journey that I again, though, it was tough looking at what I went through, the pain pre-surgery, the surgery, the post-surgery. But I was like, I'm a champ. I can't show that I'm in pain. I got this. That was my mantra. I'm a star. I got this. Can't let people in. So I finally healed from the surgeries. I'm now getting a lot of work in the corporate space. So I'm speaking at conventions. I have a whole year of travel booked in 2020. So my career is taking off. I'm finally pain-free, and we get the pandemic. So March 2020, from there, I swear, Moira, there was like an email every day or two canceling the event, pivoting to online, postponing to 2021, 22, 23, whatever they were going to be. And it was devastating because I was, my work, what I've realized now in recovery, my work was for sure an escape for me from like the life of motherhood. And my own mother was diagnosed with dementia during the pandemic as well. Some cracks in my marriage that were not sort of investigated and not dealt with because I was always off escaping to my work, which I loved. And then to share now, that was my one escape. My second escape always was alcohol. So I was a big party girl. And it started when I was a teenager. You know, I was always one to find the party. I was always one to be the last one, having the last drink. And it was totally felt acceptable. I was in crowds that drank. I found people that drank like me. I grew up in a smaller sort of town where bush parties were where it started. Alcohol was acceptable. And I think you can agree it is. Like it's normalized. Right. Even like the mummies in the park. Wine groups were like,
I
found my people.
I know. I mean, the moms, it's all like glamorized and like there's t-shirts that say, mommy needs a cocktail or this is mommy's
I think my son,
whatever,
I think my son had a onesie that said my mommy's a wino or something. Like we thought it was funny. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I was always, and then, I'm a very social person. I like my solitude a lot more now. I'm not as social. I think alcohol helped that. I can share a bit about that too. And I think when COVID hit, I couldn't escape to work, but I could escape and lean in hard to my second escape, which was alcohol. And that culture when COVID hit too, stock up on the wine, get your box of booze. We don't know if it's going to close. And like in Canada, our essential services, our liquor stores were open.
I know.
So that's also normalized. Hey, we're going to keep the hospitals open and everything and the liquor stores. So I was like, I've got this made. Everyone's staying home and drinking. This is perfect. So again, it was sort of normalized in the beginning of the pandemic. And then it wasn't fun anymore. Then it became, my husband and I at that time that we realized together we're drinking too much. Let's stop around July. Well, I didn't want to stop. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't want to. Because it was my escape. And then if I can look back at the last, 20 years, it was always my escape. It was always the thing I did to take the quote edge off or to celebrate or to reward myself. It had all these roles in my life, mostly though, with people. So it was it was always a social thing. Booze with people equaled a good time, equaled me escaping from the reality of my life at home. And during the pandemic, it became an alone thing because we were alone. We were isolated. We lived in a condo. All of our amenities were closed. I felt like I was in a little box in the sky and there was nowhere to go except into my glass of wine, which I could kind of check out. And then, so he stopped in July and I didn't stop. That's when like, when I hear active addiction and what that cycle's like, I can really relate to I had 4 months where I was in that active addiction cycle where it was on my mind. I wanted it more than ever. I didn't know how to get it unless I lied or snuck, hiding, sneaking, all these things you read about. I used to read books and biographies of people with alcoholism and think, who does that? Like I did that. I hid wine. Went for walks and had drinks. Like it's hard to share. I know I've processed the shame around that, but I really have. But it was looking back. I was not well. I was sick. I was not myself. I feel for her.
Thank you for being vulnerable and all of that. But I also don't think that that's that's why I wanted you to share that, because I don't think that's so unusual. There are so many that are escaping to something, escaping to, you said, their job, or and they're not maybe even thinking about it. Hey, I'm just going to go for a walk with my girlfriend. Let's just have a glass of wine when we do that, or have a drink. It's not a big deal. But then sometimes it's not a big deal. And sometimes it really is, when you stop to think about it. And even that whole work thing, like I love my, I love my business, my wellness business, who we talked about a little bit before, but not to the same extent, but I can understand that. I mean, I love to have my business. And when our daughter was really deep in her struggle and in and out of and stuff like that, like I love the fact that I could escape to my business and help other people and help them set goals and accomplish goals and things like that. But I also like when this whole same thing, March 2020, like all of a sudden everything stopped. And I was thankful because this podcast was born during that time, and people were home. And so I was able to contact people and say, come on, take a little bit of time. Yes. But I also was really evaluating my business because I love it. But it was also like, what am I working for? I've always loved to work for the trips. And like, as I help people, then I can get my goals. And I always had that goals of travel and, recognition and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's all gone. Like, what am I really doing this for? And I think, again, many of us, we talked about it, like the pandemic brought some good stuff out, some bad stuff out, but just a lot up to the surface, I like to say, so that we could look at that and then say, okay, what's going on here?
What's really going on? Yeah. I never got curious. I was never curious about that. I was too busy, like living a very chaotic life. And I definitely had like a sense of FOMO always. I didn't want to miss out on anything, any party or anything going on, because I didn't want to be alone by myself. I didn't want to sit with myself because I knew there were things that I wasn't truly happy with, and changes that were big changes that I had to make that I didn't think were possible. So it was easier just to say, yes, I'll be there. And yes, I'll have a bottle of wine.
Right. And I think that that's a really important point, is that that's what many times we do collectively, the quotes we do, is that we're staying so busy because we don't want to sit with and feel the feels. No. I heard that from my daughter. We've heard that in support groups and things like that. We don't want to. So it's just easier to be busy, to do other things, because if we're quiet, if we sit, if no one's around us, then like we got to deal with what's going on.
And that came up a lot it really stuck with me. And so I went to a treatment center. So I actually surrendered with the love of my close dear girlfriends who knew something was I was going down a bad path. And they were afraid of actually having a bottom. I didn't have like a rock bottom, low bottom, whatever, but I was on my way, and they kind of intervened along with my husband's support. And I surrendered. It was really hard to surrender. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was like, fine, yes, I will go. So I went to a treatment center, and just bringing back to the feelings thing you just said, what I remember learning there was, we just want to change the way we feel. That's why we online shop or eat or work or drink or drug or whatever. We just want to change. We don't want to be in our current feeling of anger, worry, disgust, sadness, whatever it is. And that helps. Just take it away. Just take it away with another purchase or another cookie or another glass of wine. So I learned that. So I spent 30 days in treatment. And really that was something I never thought in my life I'd ever go to, quote, rehab. I like to say treatment. It sounds a little more glamorous.
Right.
And while there, it was a 30-day removal from my life, and really a chance to be alone. As an only child with family everywhere, I always wanted to be around people. I really didn't want to be alone. I was just, that's just kind of who I am. I'm quite different now, but there I am alone in this beautiful area of Canada called Muskoka, at this gorgeous treatment center where we had, it was quite luxurious, and I feel so grateful, where I got to be alone and actually work on myself and have a month of discovery and be away from the substance. Wine and drinks were not available. I needed that. I needed that in my life. And then I came out of treatment at Christmas. And what I did realize while in treatment, that my marriage was not, not where it should have been in terms of us staying together as a team forever. And we amicably separated right after I came out of treatment. And we have a great co-parenting relationship with our son now, and it's been beautiful. But I was afraid to make those changes or even communicate those feelings for all the years, and drinking just took those feelings away. So then, I've been in recovery since then. And what I didn't do though, more after it came out, was my little star in me, my little, I've got this Captain Recovery. I didn't work a program. So I did not enter a 12-step program. I thought I could do it on my own. I didn't really let people in. I was still not, I wasn't ready to like share when things were not going well. And it was a totally new life for me, not drinking. Now, mind you, COVID was there too. So things were not open, which was helpful getting sober during COVID. But that led to me relapsing last summer. So I thought I could drink normally again. I gave it a try. We all hear about how relapses work. It was fascinating to me when I went back to the treatment center for 10 days on my own accord, drove myself there, paid for it, and really did it for me to get reset. And while I was there, my recovery coach said, "When did you pick up your first drink?" And I said, "June 2nd. And he goes, "Okay, so that's the end of the relapse. Tell me about the month that happened before." And I was like, whoa. And a lot did happen in May. I was off my routines. I wasn't journaling as much. I wasn't moving as much. I was sleeping in a bit more. Things were just off. I was off my own little personal program, which didn't work in the end. And so then after I left that 10 days, I will be celebrating 1 year sobriety next Wednesday.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And thank you. And in a program. And the 12 steps have been just a beautiful design for life that I've discovered, and letting people in and just like literally changing a change of life. My life is totally different than it ever was before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, congratulations to you for sticking with that. And again, we know that it's one day at a time and, one situation at a time and things like that. And, and I think, and I talk about this just in my own life and, having those routines, like the things that we establish that keep us on course, if you will. And I'd love to hear more about that. Like if there are because I know I have a morning routine, although I haven't done all of it yet because it's like up and then we're here. And so I put some of that aside, but just having that morning routine, at least for me, it's getting up and it's going outside and listening to the birds and doing my reading and journaling and gratitude and a little bit of meditation, whatever, I have time for. But that sets my day up for, something like a great day as opposed to not. And, and it's, I think regardless if you're in recovery I think everybody's recovering from something or everybody's dealing with something.
That's how I feel too. I always say that everybody should be in recovery somehow. And I've learned more about recovery actually is the depth of it. Everybody is in recovery or should get curious about how they can be in recovery from something.
Well, and I also feel like with what you said earlier, like I love the morning routine because it is that time to be quiet and with myself and like, what am I thinking about and what am I feeling? And like just getting okay and real with that and setting space for that, time for that. So that again, just to, as I can listen to like what I need or what I'm grateful for, then I can take care of myself. And I've learned that taking care of ourselves at the beginning of the day or, whenever you find time for it, got to take care of ourselves first so that we can then show up best for, whatever we're doing. If it's our job, it's for our child, for our family, for whatever it is. But that's not the way it always is seen like when you're a mom, for instance, or an entrepreneur or a business owner or whatever. It's like, we just take care of them and all of that first. Right. Yes. And then before you know it, like, what about us? But it's like, we've got to take care of ourselves first. So what have you found has been the most helpful for you to kind of, besides the 12-step programs are so good as a place to just feel like you're not alone. I mean, I've done that for Al-Anon and, my own support there and talked with many on this podcast about the 12-step programs. But what have you found yourself along with that has been helpful?
Yeah, that's what you said, the morning routine, all the things you mentioned, the journaling, the gratitude, the meditation, all that stuff is something I practice. And yeah, just with the 12 steps too, I've never been around such non-judgmental people in the rooms of, Alcoholics Anonymous. I just, you can say anything and you're supported. Like, this is huge for me. It was huge for me, and being vulnerable and sharing all the deep shame things. Like, oh yeah, no big deal. And they don't try to story top you. They just go, okay. And then they share it's just okay. Anyway, that's a side note. So I think the last 18 months, even though I did have that relapse piece in there, I do say I'm in recovery for 18 months because the journey did start when I left the treatment center. So the last 18 months, this was the birth of Breath+Fire, which is what came of it. So I had my business running before was mostly movement focused, a little bit of meditation, but it was wellness focused as well. And there I was, on stages talking about wellness, while knowing deep in the pit of my gut that I was struggling with alcohol. And that just didn't feel right. I either was maybe a little hungover on stage or waiting to go to the hotel lobby bar at the hotel I was presenting at to have another drink to reward myself for the job I had done. So alcohol was so part of that prior life. So Breath+Fire, it was birthed out of my routines, because when I think of breath, it's the calming, the grounding, the pieces for me, like meditation, nature, resting. I never rested before. I napped when I was, probably hungover and needed a nap to get on with the day. But I never rested. This power of just resting. And you don't have to close your eyes or not, but just rest. Movement for me can be the breath piece as well, but that's the calming stuff, the journaling, the things that bring me in and ground me. And then the fire is when I know I need people and socialization and hobbies and activities and moving my body and getting on a phone call. Like, that's the fire. So what I was finding in recovery, what I find is that throughout my day, it's a routine of Breath+Fire and being really aware, consciously aware of when I need either. So if I've been in a social crowd, it's like I have this, and I never had this voice. I'd be like, you're done. You're done. Go home. Be quiet, be by yourself, go for a walk along the water, sit and rest, meditate, listen to your favorite song, have the breath moment. And then if I've been doing too much breath of solitude, working, maybe doing a day of admin, I know I need fire. I know I need to do something that's going to ignite me and find my passion and my soul again. So what I sort of inspire people to do is weave in Breath+Fire throughout their day and be aware of it, the awareness piece, right? But my morning routine is I get up super early with the birds. Doesn't matter what time you put me to bed, I'm up early. So sleep is one piece of my self-care that I do struggle with it. I don't get enough sleep. And I know how, sleep is medicine. And I when I'm up at 5:30, I'm like giddy for the day. And I've never been like that. I would just be like roll over, covers over my head. But I'm actually excited to start the day. And that will include like lighting a candle, putting music on. And I don't have a certain order. In early recovery, I was extremely stringent with my routine, and I was afraid to break it. I started it in the treatment center. I started doing, light the candle, put the music on, do the, what am I grateful for? How do I feel today? What would make today great? Say the serenity prayer, and then get up and do some yoga. And if I didn't follow those steps, I got kind of nervous that I was going to mess up my recovery. I'm much more lax with that now. So if I don't feel like doing a 20-minute meditation at 6 a.m. and I just know I'm going to do it at some point in the day, I have a different trust in myself that if I don't feel like doing my movement flow, which includes some, dancing around, some strengthening, some stretching, some yoga. I'm a yoga teacher and dance professional teacher for decades. So I make my own flow up, which I just call Breath+Fire. And I do that. But if I don't feel like doing it at 7 a.m., I'm okay. I'll do it like on the beach later today. But I know I'm going to do it. And that has evolved with just trusting myself. But the morning piece, the quiet time, the me time, especially when I have my son, because we share him 50-50. The mornings I have him, I know I have 2 hours to myself in the morning. And it's amazing, Moira, like he even feels it. So when he comes out in the morning, there's a nice ambiance. There's music playing, mommy's journaling, or just sitting there, doing something, reading. And he's calmer. Good morning, as opposed to me. Get up, get late. You're going to be late. I'm making your lunch. Get your dress. Like, that is chaos. We don't want that for our children to start their day that way. So I feel like he's feeling it too. That mom is in a different place in the morning. And then I'm ready for my day.
Yeah. Well, and a great example to him that, he's seeing that. And I feel like we're very, very similar because I, feel like I love to be around people for sure. And I'm much more of an extrovert than my husband and all of that. And I love that. But I have learned that, I mean, just when you said that, I'm like, yep, I get it. Cause I love to be, but then there's some days I'm like, okay, like you said, I've had enough and I'm going to spend some time here. And I have to be careful myself to not spend too much time in that quiet and solitude. I get a little melancholy sometimes and I can kind of, and that like during the pandemic, that wasn't helpful for me because I'm like, I got to get out because like we were forced to be in and to be closed and like have this quiet time. I'm like, enough of the quiet time. I mean, a couple of my girlfriends and I were like, okay, we'll walk. I mean, we don't have to stand close to each other, but we have to I got to see people. I got to be around people. So we kind of like walked on the side streets of the next house so no one would see.
Yeah, we did. I did the same thing. Yeah.
We didn't want to get in trouble or have anybody.
Stay 6 feet and stay away. Don't talk to me. Put your mask on.
Yeah.
When I think about too, when you mentioned the social piece, like I was always, like I said, out there socializing, like you can understand, but I didn't want to go. I didn't know have that voice to tell me to leave. Like I would just stay. And even if I wasn't even interested in the crowd I was with, the booze made it tolerable to be there longer, to not go home and be with myself. So alcohol is connected to all those decisions around being too social. Because I'm not that. I make very conscious decisions now who I spend my time with and how long I'm going to be there. And my life has socially changed for the better. I've done enough, partying in social groups for a lifetime in my prior life, but it's where I want to be, where I want, like the people I want to be around and the time I want to be there for.
Right. Well, and I think, hopefully people are hearing that it's okay to have that type of, it's okay to say, you know what, I've had enough and I'm going to go, I'm going to go home and take some time for myself or go to bed early. Or again, I struggle with the same thing about sleep. I don't get enough. But I just you saying that, and I listening to you, hope this is okay for my brother, for me to say this, but our mother died April of last year. And I have two older sisters and a younger brother, and my brother was just in town in June because one of our sisters got married, and we were together for the celebration. And he talked about how he just kind of said off the cuff, I'm not drinking anymore. I quit drinking. And we're like, okay, whatever. And this is a guy that kind of like, he drank, he lives in Colorado, but he also just kind of went to the extremes and I, again, won't tell his whole story, but, concerts all the time and raging and like all this partying and stuff like that. And whatever he wants to do. But so I was kind of like surprised in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, he could drink it. I wonder about that. Or what if he's quit all this other stuff too? And when he was here, we had a really lovely conversation about, well, it kind of started by my husband saying, you know what, because all of our family was here and my dad and Chuck, the new husband and stuff. And he's like, wow, like your family, like it's different. Like the vibe is different. And I'm like, he goes, I don't know. It's just like really chill. Like, and again, my mother was a great woman, but she just was very kind of like, she was very dominating and kind of like her thoughts and like, we got to do that. And okay. And come on, it's just, because my mom was very, a lot of strong energy there. And she's not here. And I was like, okay, maybe. And I'm kind of like thinking about that. And then I brought that up to my brother when we were sitting outside one night. And he says, yeah, you know what happened? He said, after my mother, kind of, we're going off a tangent, but I think this is very relevant, is that after my mom died, he went back home to Colorado. And then he took some time off and he just went driving with his dog and he camped and he went and saw some friends for like probably 3 weeks. And he said, Moira, I was sitting outside like in nature and stuff. And I felt like this weight of kind of the world was just coming off of me. And, and he said, it was a lot, that judgment of mom, like mom wasn't around. And, I just felt like, he said, I was always afraid to kind of be me, or like, would my mother love me? Again, I'm telling his story, but this is what I remember. But, would mom really love me if she knew, the true me? that kind of thing. It was very, very vulnerable. And it was the first time he'd ever really shared that. But he said, I just felt like that was going, that was like gone. And he said, then I really evaluated, like, why was I drinking? Why was I doing this? Why was I doing all this extreme stuff? It's kind of like you want somebody to love you. And so instead of like cleaning up your act saying, hey, you should love me, like it was like in my mind, he was going to the extreme.
Right.
But he said, I realized that I didn't need that stuff anymore. And he goes, I just don't. So he goes, I just quit. I quit drinking. I quit. And he said, I go to concerts because I still love music and I love to be around. But he goes, I find myself going home. I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to go home. And it's like, it just made me think of that. It's like that awareness. Like he goes, I don't need those things to like whatever it was doing for him. And a lot of it was really distracting. And a lot of like, again, related to the way that he felt about my mother and my mother's control over him and all of that. And it's like, he goes, I don't need it anymore. And he said, and I was so like, I'm happy for him. It was just like, wow, Todd, nice. Like what a wonderful, because now you have this freedom of your life.
Yes. I feel liberated again. I feel like liberation is a total word. I feel that I'm not tied to the chains of, is the booze going to be there? Will there be enough? Like, that those thoughts that were always in my mind. Will there be alcohol served? Or I hope there is, or I don't really want to go. Like, why? Now, if I don't want to go, I just don't go. Right. But it's interesting you said the mother piece too. Again, this could be another whole segment. So my mother has dementia and is still alive. She's 88. She got into nursing home August of 2020. So I'm not sure if there's a connection. I should get curious about this, of her being like, she's here, but she's not here. She does not know who I am. And, it's really tough to see. She's kind of a child again, but she doesn't have, I think her control over me might've been part of my drinking as well. Like me wanting to always please her and be the star and keep busy and not show any vulnerability or any failures. And now she doesn't know I'm in recovery. She doesn't know I'm divorced. Because she doesn't know what's going on. So perhaps there's something connected there. You just made me think of that. I'm going to get curious about that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure that, I think it's a really interesting thing. And again, for him, it was just kind of like, I think it just kind of like, wow. Again, oh yeah, that's a huge that's what they call like a spiritual awakening in a way, like in the 12 steps. Like that was my after like July 21 of 2021. So coming up, I woke up and went, I'm done with it all. And I really meant it. I don't know where that came from, but that was my first true like spiritual experience in just like, I knew I was done and I can't describe how or why. And I had no trouble. I had the obsession for it gone. Because I was willing to do the work to get deeper into why I was doing it. They call it like an iceberg, like the substances or all the things we do is like the tip that everyone sees. You remove that tip, there's a whole other iceberg under the water of the mental health and the childhood trauma and all the stuff. Why we were doing the substances, the shopping, the eating, whatever, the work. Like that's the real work that comes up every day. It always never stops. Right. Well, and and I'll just leave it at that. Like for people that are listening, like listen to those little spiritual things. Like, again, my brother being out there going like, wow, this is like, again, being quiet enough and slow down enough to sometimes, just hear that, or like that's waking up that day. And I tell the story to, again, it's a conversation for another time, but a few years ago, I had two instances about 30 days apart from each other where, and I wasn't really into this whole spirituality and like intuition and all that kind of stuff. With my daughter, I visited a little shop that we were, kind of a spiritual shop, and a little Indian couple owned it, and getting some mala beads and incense and all that kind of stuff. And she read our astrological charts, and which I knew nothing about. I'm like, whatever. And so I listened to her talk about my daughter, and I was like, wow, or like read her chart. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So she read my chart. And again, long story, but one of it, she told me that I should go see my mother and spend some time with my mother. And she lived in the next town over. So I'm like, okay. And she was not bad. Just go be of service to your mom, be with your mother. about 30 days later, my girlfriend invited me to a assault room that we have here in the next town over, and for some energy clearing. No idea what it was. I mean, I know what it is now.
I love this stuff.
At that point, I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I could use some new energy because things were pretty rough around here. Things were getting pretty chaotic with our daughter and her struggles. And I was like, okay. And so the intuitive that did the reading with us, when she came to mine and she's like, oh, your chakra's this, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, is your mom still alive? I was like, yes. She goes, you just need to go see your mom. You need to go visit your mom. And I was like, I mean, within 30 days of each other. And I did I got back in touch with this intuitive and I spent some time with her. I did some coaching with her and she brought up often, like, have you seen your mother? I'm like, I don't really have that relationship with her. Like, she's a good mom, but I wasn't that. I mean, I'm close to her, but still that guarded because she's so judgmental and all this history and stuff. But I did keep that in mind for the next several years. Because I said, is she going to die? And she said, and it just reminded me, and I brought this up because of what you said about your mother. She said, she's going to be around, but she's really not going to be in the same state. And so you just need to go be with her. And sure enough, she, struggled with some diagnosis and finally she was diagnosed with Parkinson's and a little bit of, dementia and stuff like that, but mostly the Parkinson's. And she wasn't, from then on, she really wasn't who she used to be. And she just, started to decline and needed more help. And I just kept that in mind, that when I was with her, I just was like, okay, mom, what can I do for you? What can I do for you, mom? And that was a different feeling, relationship. And I just started to forgive all of that stuff in the past so that I could just kind of let that go. And it really helped it end well with my mother, Excellent. And just that, and again, not, in a similar way that I'm like, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be like burdened down with all of that. Well, remember when mom did this? Remember when mom did this? And it's like that burden of like all of that stuff. And I just was slowly over the next probably 4 years able to kind of just get rid of that.
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
Clear it
yeah.
and be with my mother to the point that there was one time, I mean, it's a simple thing, but I'll never forget. She asked me to cut her toenails. Like I was sitting there, like clipping her toenails, like crying, going, I've never been in this service role with my mother because my mom took care of everything.
Of course. Yeah.
And
when you say the word servant, I like how you said, be with your mom, be of service to her. That really resonates with me. I like that word, service.
Yeah. I bring that up to just for whatever you can hear from that, whoever is listening, but also that like those spiritual things that come, those times that, again, it comes when we slow down, when we are quiet, when we're out in nature, we can hear those things or get those ideas or whatever, because even though I wasn't really in touch with that intuitive after, a couple of years, I haven't really seen her, but I texted her when my mom was home in hospice. And I said, thank you. Thank you for giving me that, because you gave me a gift. And so did that little Indian lady in that shop in Colorado. She gave me a gift of like, go be with your mother because she's not going to be here for long, and we can get rid of that stuff, again, I think the message is get rid of that stuff, forgive them, forgive ourselves so that we can, so things can end well, but also so that we can really be our authentic, authentic selves.
Authentic selves. And that's what the true message of my recovery is, that authenticity is like, I'm that girl again at 24 on the cruise ship. I'm older, obviously older body and wiser. I'm full of way more wisdom and experiences under my past, but I do have that anything is possible once again in life, which is, it's like, you want to call it a midlife crisis? No, it's a midlife realization.
It's almost an awakening.
It is truly an awakening, and we're not too old and it's never too late to make these changes. I met people in recovery that are, 70 getting sober, and it's not too late. It's just time, but it's been a profound change in my entire life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great. I know there's a reason why we got together, because again, I love this story. And then we have a lot of similarities with this. And again, I hope that others can hear that, there is that chance and that possibility again of getting rid of those things that just don't serve us so we can really be okay with our authentic selves. Because
sure.
I say the same things, like life is worth living. It's never too late to start taking care of yourselves or just being who God created us to be.
Exactly. And it does come with awareness. That is step one, is being aware and looking at different areas. I think in my homecoming program, it's a 3-week program. I have the first week is awareness, then acceptance, then action. And it's just small little things that, I never thought about. Like, am I really happy where I live? Can I make a change? Or my relationship with my siblings? Or they're just small things that it's just complete awareness, but we don't take the time to do it unless you are an avid, journaler or reflector. But most of us aren't. So that's what I challenge people to sort of do.
Yeah. And where can they find you?
For sure. Website is breath+Fire.com. And you can be anywhere, in the world to do my 3-week program. It is virtual. We do it on Zoom. I even though I was like, COVID, Zoom, it now has had me reach people from all across, North America can be in the program. And so breath+Fire.com or on Instagram, Michelle_breath+Fire. And it's time to, I like to say your inner flame has not gone out, because that's what I felt like. I was either on a pilot light, especially during COVID, or for 25 years, I was a blazing inferno. So now I have found that controlled blaze, and we all have that flame inside of us. And some people, it's on a pilot light and it's not out, and I can help you find it, at least find the spark a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to, unless you have any final words, I think that's a great.
No, that's a great way to end. Yeah. I feel like we have a lot more. I feel like we have more to talk about though. Yeah. We might be a part 2 in our future.
I think so. Yeah. But thank you, Michelle. Again, I'm just thankful for the universe for bringing us together. Because again, I think this is a great message. There's wonderful messages on my podcast, but this again, so appropriate for this time where, again, the pandemic has brought forth a lot of interesting things for many of us. So I appreciate you sharing this. And again, some great messages. And to all my listeners, again, continue to share these podcasts. And if you want to reach out to Michelle, again, find her where she is so that she can help you. I love that kind of, we don't have to live on a pilot light, right? We can know when to turn the flame up and to really pull it down to, I think it's really wonderful. So again, thanks for being here, Michelle. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Catch you next time on the podcast. Take care. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? Please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.